Marvin Neil Simon was born on July 4, 1927 and died on August 26, 2018. He was an American playwright, screenwriter and author. He wrote more than 30 plays and nearly the same number of movie screenplays, mostly adaptations of his plays. He received more combined Oscar and Tony nominations than any other writer. Simon grew up in New York City during the Great Depression, with his parents' financial hardships affecting their marriage, giving him a mostly unhappy and unstable childhood. He often took refuge in movie theaters where he enjoyed watching the early comedians like Charlie Chaplin. After a few years in the Army Air Force Reserve, and after graduating from high school, he began writing comedy scripts for radio and some popular early television shows. Among them were Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows from 1950, where he worked alongside other young writers including Carl Reiner, Mel Brooks and Selma, and The Phil Silvers Show, which ran from 1955 to 1959. He began writing his own plays beginning with Come Blow Your Horn 1961, which took him 3 years to complete and ran for 678 performances on Broadway. It was followed by two more successful plays, Barefoot in the Park 1963 and The Odd Couple 1965, for which he won a Tony Award. It made him a national celebrity and the hottest new playwright on Broadway. During the 1960s to 1980s, he wrote both original screenplays and stage plays, with some films actually based on his plays. His style ranged from romantic comedy to farce to more serious dramatic comedy. Overall, he garnered 17 Tony nominations and won 3. During one season, he had 4 successful plays running on Broadway at the same time, and in 1983 became the only living playwright to have a New York theater, the Neil Simon Theater, named in his honor. Neil Simon was born on July 4, 1927. In the Bronx, New York, to Jewish parents. His father, Irving Simon, was a garment salesman, and his mother, Mamie, Levy, Simon, was mostly a homemaker. Simon had one older brother by 8 years, television writer and comedy teacher Danny Simon. He grew up in Washington Heights, Manhattan, during the period of the Great Depression, graduating from DeWitt Clinton High School when he was 16. Where he was nicknamed Doc and described as extremely shy in the school yearbook. Simon's childhood was difficult and mostly unhappy due to his parents' tempestuous marriage and financial hardship caused by the Depression. He would sometimes block out their arguments by putting a pillow over his ears at night. His father often abandoned the family for months at a time, causing them further financial and emotional hardship. As a result, Simon and his brother Danny were sometimes forced to live with different relatives, or else their parents took in boarders for some income. During an interview with writer Lawrence Grobel, Simon stated, "To this day I never really knew what the reason for all the fights and battles were about between the two of them. She'd hate him and be very angry, but he would come back and she would take him back. She really loved him." Simon states that among the reasons he became a writer was to fulfill his need to be independent of such emotional family issues, and he recognized when he was 7 or 8, "I'd better start taking care of myself somehow." It made me strong as an independent person. To escape difficulties at home he often took refuge in movie theaters, where he especially enjoyed comedies with silent stars like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Laurel and Hardy. Simon recalls, "I was constantly being dragged out of movies for laughing too loud. I think part of what made me a comedy writer is the blocking out of some of the really ugly, painful things in my childhood and covering it up with a humorous attitude, do something to laugh until I was able to forget what was hurting." Simon acknowledged these childhood movies as having inspired him to write comedy. "I wanted to make a whole audience fall onto the floor, writhing and laughing so hard that some of them pass out." He appreciated Chaplin's ability to make people laugh and made writing comedy his long-term goal, and also saw it as a way to connect with people. Simon died around 1 a.m. Sunday at New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. Simon held 3 honorary degrees, a Doctor of Humane Letters from Hofstra University, a Doctor of Letters from Marquette University and a Doctor of Law from Williams College. In 1983 Simon became the only living playwright to have a New York City theater named after him. The Alvin Theater on Broadway was renamed the Neil Simon Theater in his honor, and he was an honorary member of the Walnut Street Theater's Board of Trustees. Also in 1983, Simon was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame. In 1965, he won the Tony Award for Best Playwright, The Odd Couple, and in 1975, a special Tony Award for his overall contribution to American theater. Simon won the 1978 Golden Globe Award for Best Motion Picture Screenplay for The Goodbye Girl. For Brighton Beach Memoirs 1983, he was awarded the New York Drama Critics Circle Award, followed by another Tony Award for Best Play of 1985, by Loxie Blues. In 1991 he won the Pulitzer Prize along with the Tony Award for Lost in Yonkers 1991. The Neil Simon Festival 29 is a professional summer repertory theater devoted to preserving the works of Simon and his contemporaries. The Neil Simon Festival was founded by Richard Dean Bugg in 2003 and performs at the Heritage Center Theater in Cedar City, Utah. He died at 91 years old.